Hey everyone, I'm at the new office on the square in Lawrenceville, Georgia, and what I wanted to do today was a quick tour of the building and the status of construction. I get a lot of questions on how things are going and questions about the design and the history of the building. So I thought, well, maybe I'll try a video and see how you guys like it and go around and talk about kind of the status of where we are with things. In this video, I wanted to focus specifically on the brick. One of the reasons I wanted to put my office in an old building on the square in Lawrenceville was this fantastic old brick. And this brick is notorious for being very soft in Lawrenceville. This wall right here was actually built in 1899. The building itself was not built until 1914. So what we found through the research was that this space was an alleyway at one time. And that's going to be important when we start talking about the design and how the design came about, as we wanted to preserve a little bit of that history of the building being an alleyway. But the brick, what I want to really go over is the brick itself, how it was made. Originally, when the bricks were produced, they would have been formed in hand molds. So the molds would have been anywhere from 6 to 8 to 12, maybe even 16 bricks. And you would have packed the clay into these molds. And it's debated whether the brick was left to air dry or if they were fired in a kiln. Now, some say that there was a little bit too much fly ash added to the brick and that's why they become soft. But what we do know today is that the bricks themselves are extremely soft, and we've put a number of coats of a hardening sealer on the brick in order to stop the brick from dusting. And what dusting is when really it's just the outside face of the brick. It's just is dusting off. It's just like the name says. And here you can see an example of that on the floor. And this is also a great example of evidence that the space was an alleyway. You can see over here to the left where the brick is really nice and eroded on the face, and this would have been from where water splashed up onto the outside of the brick and just eroded it over time. This area right here is a newer section of the brick wall where we infilled. When we removed all of the plaster, these walls were originally meant to have plaster over the face of them. You weren't ever meant to see this fantastic brick behind it. But what we did here is we infilled a section of the brick wall. And when we did that, we had to go back with a mortar that would have been the same type of mortar that you would have used over 100 years ago. And Portland cement was not invented until after, or really it was invented around the time of this building, but it would not have been something that would have been available to the people making this wall. So this mortar itself is specifically made out of a blend of lime, water, and sand. It was very simple, and it was also a very soft mortar. And so that was important because if we had gone back with a Portland cement, what would have happened is that our mortar would have been stronger than our brick wall. And what would happen over time is this brick wall expands and contracts with the changes in the weather. If the mortar were stronger, the faces of the brick would pop off because they wouldn't be able to expand and contract themselves. So we went back with this softer mortar. Now the space here was originally part of Mr. Wilson's old store. He had 3 stores in a row. This was the northernmost store. And he cut 2 holes into the old brick wall. You can see one of them right here. And the brick walls themselves are actually solid brick. There's not any type of structure behind it. They're completely load bearing. There are 3 layers of brick that make up the wall, so it's about 12 inches thick. The space itself is 80 feet long by 24 feet wide, and you can see the other hole up here that was cut through to make a large doorway, and we infilled that very nicely. But when you made this brick wall, you went out into the countryside and you didn't dig a footing like you would dig a footing today. You just went, you found a bunch of rocks, and you set these rocks right on top of the ground, and that's what formed the base for your wall. So you can see here the brick is just put right on top of this old stone wall. So this was just kind of local field stone, and you just stack this field stone up and you put your wall on top of that. And that's why you see the columns here are set out 3.5 feet from the brick wall, and that's so that we would not influence the brick wall itself when we dug out for footing. So that the columns had to be a far enough distance away where they would not undermine the actual brick wall itself. Here in the back, we have a different type of brick. Now this is because of an addition that was done at some point in the 1950s. And what they did is they came in and they did a renovation, just like we're doing today. And they put this back wall in here, and this is a harder fired brick. You can see here when we uncovered the plaster from these walls, there were old windows in the side walls, and we just infilled them, and that windows happened on both sides. But this old brick also occurs at the front of this space, and I imagine what happened is that the original soft brick had started to erode badly in the front from the weather, and they decided just to rip it all out and go back with this harder fired brick. And so you can see that harder fired brick up here in the front against the old soft brick. Now, one thing to notice here on this brick wall, and it's really just fantastic in the way it's made, but you were never meant to see any of this. So you can kind of tell how the horizontal joints, some of them aren't quite horizontal. You can see a crack in the wall we infilled right there. But take a look, this is a piece of wood that was inserted into the brick wall about 30 inches tall, and nobody really knows what that wood piece was for, whether it's for shoring to hold the wall up while it was drying, or if it was meant for some sort of attachment method later. But when we purchased the building, the wall itself was completely plastered over. And about every 8th course, if you can tell, you turn the brick in. So here's an example right here. You turn the brick in, and then here, well, you know, it's interesting. Look at this. Oh, here it is right here. As you go up, here it is right here. It's sort of hard to see. But you turn the brick in to lock the wall together. So about every 8 courses you would do that, and what that did is that locked this 12-inch wall together to make it stronger. So that's the brick. I hope you guys enjoyed a little bit of the history of the brick. We're going to do some other videos talking about other aspects of the design and construction as well, but I hope you enjoyed it. Take care.